Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're so excited to have you here with us today. We are letting in a couple of people as the waiting room is kind of filling out into our meeting area. So we're going to give people a couple of minutes to come in. I know it's just now 2 o'clock or 2:01 to be exact. So we'll maybe give them a minute or so to come and join us. But thank you all for being here, taking time out of your Thursday afternoon or morning for our West Coast friends to join us for a great webinar that we have for you today. I will take this time just to introduce myself, and then I'll pass it over to Corianne, who can introduce themselves. I am Stacy Baxter. I'm the program manager at Next Century Cities. We're very excited to have you join us for our webinar today.
Hi, everyone. So glad to see so many familiar faces and excited to meet so many new people. I'm Corianne Zacher, Senior Policy Counsel at Next Century Cities, and I will pass it over to Andy.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Andy Stutzman. I'm the executive director of Next Century Cities, and yeah, again, so great to see people. I know we got to meet Oakland Undivided out in California last year, or in January for Digital Equity Summit out there. So excited to see so many people joining today, and that we can share some great information from our partners here.
Yes, so we are building broadband for all together, and we know that all of us are doing such great work here, and it's important to share the great work we're doing, share the strengths, and even some of the things that didn't work out. We know that 2 heads are better than 1, 5 heads are better than 2, and all this work just screams collaboration. And so we're hoping that that's a little bit of what we can do today. We have some great guests with us from Oakland Undivided and American Connection Corps, and we will be introducing them in just a couple of minutes. But before we do, we're going to switch it back over to Andy Stutzman, our executive director, who's going to tell us a little bit about an upcoming event that we have next month that we're very excited about.
Yeah, just want to make sure everyone has seen we have the bipartisan tech conference we have going on April 16th and 17th in DC at National Association of Counties, NACO. And we are just so excited to have so many great folks coming out to support us in this. We really are encouraging our members to come out and find ways so we can find ways to lift up their voices and kind of showcase some of the work they're doing and connect them with other people doing similar work. And that could assist them in their broadband deployments and digital equity work as well. And so the 16th is going to be kind of a pre-conference as well. So we are doing a Hill Day for folks that want to connect with their members on Capitol Hill. We also will have a poster session there and also have a reception there right before that evening as well. That's going to be at Nelson Mullins. And then Wednesday is the main conference there. We have just a great lineup of speakers, and just want to make sure to push it out that we lowered registration to $0. So it's, as far as the costs are, it's $0 cost. And if any of our members that are out there that do need help with hotels and things like that, travel, we do have a small budget to help with some of those costs as well. So we encourage everyone to come out. If you have questions, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. I'd love to see you out there in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
Yeah, I think our countdown's to like 19 days right now. So we are excited. We are feeling the pressure, the good pressure of seeing everybody in DC. And then, as Andy said, for those of you who might need some help with travel, we're here for that. And those of you who are looking to spend some money, we are still open for sponsorship at different levels here. And if that's something that you're interested in, or the organization might be interested in, please feel free to reach out to me. We'll be following up this webinar with an email to our registrants with the slides from today and just some more information about the things we talked about. So that's always an option here, and we're really excited to see everyone. Hopefully everybody on this call will be joining us. So we're very excited for Bipartisan Tech. Okay, so without kind of further ado, I definitely want to give a special thank you to our guests that are here today. We have 2 amazing organizations who are going to be talking about the work that they're doing, and I will be introducing Oakland Undivided. They are an equity-based collective impact initiative working since 2020 to close the digital divide. They are a small but very mighty team committed to sustaining and scaling school and home digital access for Oakland's 50,000 plus public school students, and working to address some of the structural barriers to achieve that community-wide connectivity. We're so grateful to have 3 members of their team with us today. We had a great connection with them when we were out in LA at the Digital Equity Summit, and we're so excited to know that they were going to join us today and share about the work that they're doing in Oakland. So without further ado, I'll leave it over to them to introduce themselves and tell us about Oakland Undivided as I pull up their their slides here.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you for that great intro. Hi, everyone. My name is Cynthia Diaz. I am the Director of Community Impact for Oakland Undivided.
Great, I can jump in. Hi, everyone. My name is Georgia Savage. I'm Deputy Director at Oakland Undivided.
Yes, and my name's Carolina Mendez, she, her pronouns. I'm a Lead Fellow and Program Manager at Oakland Undivided. Thank you for having us.
Great. Well, Stacy, I think you beat us to the punch, so we can go ahead and just skip to slide 3 because the beginning was intros. And we'll let Carolina start us off.
Yeah, so just to add on to kind of what Stacy already shared about Oakland Undivided, our mission is to sustain and scale school and home digital equity access for Oakland's 50,000 public school students while simultaneously addressing structural barriers to achieve community-wide connectivity for all Oaklanders.
And we want to start off by providing a bit of background on who we are. Oakland Undivided is a collective impact initiative. We were launched in May of 2020 in our previous Oakland mayor's office when students approached the director of education asking if he knew of resources to support students with remote learning. We see our work in phases. So that first year from May 2020 to June 2021, we were hyper-focused on supporting student connectivity. The next year, we continued supporting the next year, and still we continue supporting student access. And we began the implementation of citywide broadband solutions. And for the past 2 years, we focused a lot of our energy on developing long-term sustainability and advocating for infrastructure investments in our city. You can go to the next slide, Stacy. Thank you.
Great. And I think we skipped one. Do you mind going back, Stacy? This one. I think that's forward. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So, as Stacy mentioned and Cynthia also mentioned, we are a collective impact initiative. What does that mean? That means there's a lot of folks behind the work that we're doing and working with us to essentially achieve the results that we want, which is connecting all folks in Oakland. So we see right here our founding partners, our leadership partners, and then also community endorsers, such as elected leaders, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in our presentation. There are also many community leaders that are integral parts of this work. And so we just wanted to give you an idea of coalition and who's in our coalition and what we mean when we refer to our coalition and leveraging partnerships throughout this presentation. Wonderful. Wonderful, thanks. So in terms of kind of the lens and how we're approaching this work as well as this presentation, we really wanted to focus on 3 key levers of change. The first in which is leveraging collective action and our partnerships, just as you saw on the prior slide. The second is meeting the community where they are at. And then the third is utilizing data to make better decisions and better investments. So keep that in mind, and we'll kind of highlight those throughout our presentation.
Yeah, so to kind of start us off, as our initiative began thinking about internet access, we began to focus on the Affordable Connectivity Program, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but that's a federal benefit that saves households up to $30 a month. We launched a campaign back in February of 2023 to enroll as many families as we could in the ACP program. We did this by leveraging our efforts with Oakland Unified School District and our charter schools to mail merge over 40,000 personalized eligibility documents that families could use to enroll in the program. And you can see examples of this letter in the slide. And because OUSD is a community eligibility provision district, this allowed for every single student in OUSD to become automatically eligible. And this universal eligibility within the district was a huge win for us because we were able to work around the possible stigma that came from participating in a federal support program and also removed any fear that migrant families could have when it comes to their immigration status and also just participating in a federal program. So our ACP campaign, it consisted of us creating a ACP helpline email, which was just specific to ACP support. Families had access to it and they were able to reach out to us if they needed support with their application process, if they needed a digital version of that eligibility letter that we created. And if for any reason they were mistakenly declined for the program, which shouldn't be the case because every single student and household qualified, then we were able to kind of streamline that process and connect with folks in USAC in order to kind of figure out, what's going on and really streamline the process for families to make it as easy as possible as we could for them to receive the benefit. We also expanded our efforts by working with a local tech hub, which is Tech Exchange. They're based out of Oakland. They offer in-person support in English, Spanish, and Mom. Mom is a native Mayan language that's mainly spoken in Guatemala. And so really centering our community and making sure that we're working and thinking about them as well. And so this was a really great win for us too, to be able to have this support in different languages. This tech hub also tabled at after school events that schools hosted in order to sign up families. And so this is just like a prime example of us being able to build trust and meet the community where they're at as we're thinking of possible barriers that they may experience, such as language, maybe transportation, and also immigration status. And all of these efforts eventually led to an increase of enrollment from 38% back in February of 2023 to 60% of eligible households being enrolled as of November 2023. And next slide, please. So fast forward, now we're in January of 2024, and we, like the rest of you, found out that the FCC will begin their wind down process for the ACP program. And so the program will end unless, funding gets approved. So right away, we began to think about, what are ways that we can prepare the 27,000 enrolled households in Oakland for them to avoid bill shock in May and maintain trust with our coalition. Since we were very active in the enrollment process, we want to make sure that we're maintaining trust with our community. So we had to pivot our enrollment campaign, and now we're focused on awareness, informing families of this change. We're doing this by creating collateral that's intentionally easy to understand for all audiences. It's in multiple languages. We are engaging our local news outlets by sharing a press release. And we once again are leveraging our coalition with Oakland Unified School District to begin a social media campaign so that families can be informed. And you can see a screenshot of that Instagram post pictured here. And so really just trying to get the word out and reach as many people as we can. We also shared this information with our community engagement committee and offered, to print flyers, posters for their organization so they can have them up. We encourage them to use our newsletter blurb. So just creating materials and making it as easy as possible to share this information. We're also directing families to our local tech hub, again, Tech Exchange, so that they can get that additional support and kind of help them understand what this process is. We also created a website that explains consumer rights and information and other low-cost programs in the area. So just really empowering our community to know that they have options and that we want them to stay connected. And all of these items were created with community in mind. Lastly, we also utilized data to inform us which areas had the largest amount of enrollment. We're also able to utilize data so that our call center can reach back out to these families who we know have the ACP benefit and letting them know that the program is ending. And because they've heard from our call center before, this is building sort of a relationship and really maintaining that trust. And it's really just important to highlight that as Stacy mentioned, that our team is small but mighty. We're made up of 4 individuals, and all of these efforts would not have been possible without our intentional network of collective action that's focused on achieving the same goal, which is providing digital access to all students. And I'll hand it over to Cynthia.
Thank you, Carolina. And Carolina already alluded to this, but we cannot emphasize enough how important it is to meet communities where they are. And it's been one of the most important ways that we've been able to advance our mission. And one of the best ways that I can highlight this is through the work that our phone bankers have done. Back in December 2021, we were able to hire 3 part-time phone bankers to support the work that we did with the Oakland Unified School District, one of our main partners, to get as many digital needs assessments, which we called the Tech Check, completed. The families that are phone bankers were reaching out to were the hardest to reach families, families who, for whatever reason, had not been able to share what their tech needs were as they were doing remote learning. These were English language learners, immigrants, unhoused students, and families. So whenever our phone bankers were able to talk to them and they indicated a need for any type of device, whether it was a Chromebook or access to home internet, we had a computer and a hotspot sent over for them to pick up at their school. The data that we helped OUSD collect gave them a better estimate of the need that existed within their district, which they used when they applied for their second round of ECF funding. And for those of you who don't know what ECF, it's the Emergency Connectivity Fund, and it's a program that was established to support schools and libraries with remote learning during COVID. And just like OU has evolved, the work that our phone bankers has evolved as well. And as Carolina shared, starting next week, we'll be contacting our OUSD families who've shared with us in the past that they were enrolled in the ACP to make sure that they've heard that the program is ending and to let them know of the resources that they have available. We've been able to capture so much valuable data through these calls around student tech needs, device distribution, and just even the effectiveness of different communication platforms that OUSD, that our school district uses, which has really helped OUSD make more informed decisions as they're thinking of how they're evolving their program. And one thing that I just want to highlight here for all of those who are potentially thinking of having a phone bank, it's really important to, It's really important to find a trusted, for us, what worked really well was being able to work with OUSD, a trusted institution who's already connected to the population you're trying to serve. For us, serving our students is really important. So it only made sense that we made that connection and that partnership. And we also work with charter schools to support their students. And when you are reaching out to families, make that connection between you and that trusted institution clear from the very beginning. We have about a 40% answer rate, which I find really impressive because I don't know about y'all, but if I get a phone call from someone I don't know, I will never pick it up. And so this kind of goes back to what Carolina was saying. We've been able to build that trust with OUSD families. And a lot of the times our phone bankers are talking to families who they reached out to a year or 2 years ago. And those families remember the phone banker and remember the service that they provided to them. So make that connection really clear. And lastly, make sure that sorry, can't see the bottom there. But make sure that you are engaging with intention of serving. If you are thinking of calling families and you don't really know what you're providing them, then really rethink whether or not that phone call is necessary. What has worked really well is that we always offer something tangible to our families, whether it's the possibility of obtaining a Chromebook, of obtaining a hotspot, or of obtaining a $30 discount on their internet plan. So just some things that we definitely want to recommend if it's something you're thinking of doing. And then the next slide, please, Stacy. Okay, thank you. There we go. And then the second example that I want to share is around the work we've done capturing community voices on the barriers that keep them disconnected. You can't really solve a problem if you don't understand it. And too often, decisions are made without directly hearing from the folks affected. We encountered this when we saw California's draft of its digital equity plan. One of the areas that really stood out to us was the area that you see here, where they're listing some of the specific barriers that individuals with language barriers identified. And the one that really stood out for us was mistrust of government and corporations. Throughout OU's history, we've been very intentional about holding space to hear from and engage with the community. And we had never heard one person mention this as one of those barriers. So what we decided to do was work with one of our partners in our coalition, El Tímpano, which is a local news, information, and civic engagement organization that serves the Latino and Mayan immigrants of the Bay Area. They have over 3,000 Spanish and mom-speaking subscribers who are actively engaging with their text messaging platform. So we had them ask their subscribers a very simple question. Tell us, is it difficult for you to connect to the internet? If so, why? In 3 days, we were able to collect 70 responses. And the majority of folks shared that it was cost. And a lot of them named the inability to meet requirements for low-income programs and discounts, which is not something that we saw in the state digital equity plan at all. So what we did, we gathered all of these responses, translated them, and submitted them as public comment for the California Digital Equity Plan, so that those developing the final plan actually saw these responses. We are also using these responses when we're talking to legislators and decision makers about the needs that exist in our communities. And Georgia will talk a little bit more about how we're using this data. But just to wrap this part up, as I shared before, some tips for capturing community voices. Super important to just work with a trusted messenger who already serves the population you're trying to reach. This work has already been done, and if you establish those relationships, it'll make this work a lot easier. And once you capture those voices, find ways to uplift them. These are most of the time those folks who are not tech savvy or don't feel comfortable really sharing what their problems are, what their barriers are. So if you're able to make that connection, if you're able to capture this information, share it with all those folks who are actually trying to address the issue for the communities. And I will hand it over to Georgia.
Great. So we're going to wrap up by talking about our advocacy efforts. Obviously, we all know there's a lot going on at the federal level and certainly at the California state level, but we're really going to focus on one example, which is our middle mile advocacy efforts, because I think that's a great example of leveraging these 3 levers of change we've been talking about. So moving to our next slide. Why did I choose middle mile and what am I talking about? So we're going to start this conversation with data and we're going to end with data. So we really see with middle mile advocacy in California, the results of utilizing poor data. So CPUC, which is our essentially broadband office, they presented this map that shows inaccurate and inequitable service in California. As you know, we all may imagine, there was a severe undercounting of unserved populations in the areas where we know are the largest unserved populations, just solely due to income. But we also saw a great amount of overstated need in the wealthiest areas in our county. And so this bad data led to decisions being made, such as divestment from our community. Essentially, our state told us that they needed to make cuts because of inflation. And so initially, this 10,000 mile map that had been proposed needed to be cut back. And they made those cuts based on the poor mapping and the inaccurate data that they had. And so in our community, you can see by this headline, we experienced a $15 million divestment or proposed divestment from East Oakland, which is one of the areas in our community that needs the most funding and the most investment and has been historically overlooked for decades. We also saw the same in Southern California, specifically Southeast LA. So as a response to this, we really leveraged our coalition, those folks that I referred to at the beginning of our presentation. And we also really leveraged our California-wide coalition, which is the California Digital Equity Alliance, or CADE. We essentially work together to actually physically show up outside some of these meetings, which you can see in the top right corner, and also activate press, right? So we reached out to our local press. So you'll see the San Francisco Chronicle news article there, but also Mercury News, LA Times, to really inform them of what was going on and inform them when we were going to host an action like this. We also reached out to our local electeds. So again, you saw on that first coalition slide that there are a number of electeds. I really cannot emphasize enough reaching out to your electeds, letting them know what's going on and getting them to sign on to a letter of support or perhaps a letter of opposition, depending on the issue you're working on, because that really does go a long way with decision makers. Finally, I also recommend that you participate in your local hearings. For us, right, that's our state communication and conveyance hearing committee in the assembly level. They're usually the committee that hears the broadband bills, the energy committee on the Senate side. But these are public meetings which you can attend, and we really emphasize you go to those so you can be on the record. So you'll see Patrick, our director in the bottom right, attending one of those meetings. And we really encourage you to activate your coalition and let them come to those meetings, right? Legislators actually have to hear from you when you're showing up to those public hearings, and it really does influence their decisions. For folks who are maybe not as experienced in the space, definitely provide them with some talking points so they feel confident enough to come. But your state also may allow for phone-ins, which makes it even easier, but really emphasizing that you're showing up and getting your voice heard. Next slide, please. Great. Some more advocacy tips. So with all these collective advocacy efforts, we were able to get the governor to propose $1.5 billion to complete this middle mile network in his proposed state budget. Now, it still needs to go through the legislature to actually be actualized and passed and for us to get that money. So that's our current efforts. Our current efforts is working with our legislators to tell them why they should safeguard and pass this $1.5 billion that's been proposed by the governor in order to complete the middle mile network and not divest from these historically divested communities. So how we did that is, and are continuing to do that, is really meeting policymakers where they're at. It may not come as a shock to you, but a ton of policymakers and the average person doesn't know a lot about broadband or telecom. So it's really important that we're making this topic as accessible as possible. So you'll see on the left, we have essentially a case for why they should pass this, and we personalize this for their particular district. So we told them, how much money would your district receive if this 1.5 were to pass? So this is the example for our district, 8018, right? We'd experience a $10 million investment if this were to pass, and also showcasing the tools that are already out there, right, from our state broadband office, the CPUC, showing the need in our community. We also wanted to create a one-pager, which you'll see on the right, for what is an open access network, why is this the best solution, and what even is middle mile, right? We use that term a lot, but what does that mean? A lot of folks don't know, so we talked about what it is, why it's important, and also gave some case studies on how this has benefited other communities. This was really important because we were hearing a lot of misinformation from legislators like, well, if we invest in this, isn't the cost going to be ultimately at the end user, right? So essentially, isn't this going to drive cost up for broadband, which is not true, incorrect, and actually the opposite, right? So just explaining to folks what even this is incredibly important. And then lastly, like we talked about before, really utilizing your coalition. So this last page, all these logos that you see here, those are all coalition members who signed onto our letter saying, safeguard this $1.5 billion. And it's through this coalition that really legislators are able to see who's behind this, what support we have, and a wide breadth of support we have for safeguarding this 1.5. And also, when you submit letters like this will make you more likely to get a meeting and get some face time with that legislator too. Next slide, please. Great. And so I said we'd start with data, we're ending with data as well. What I really recommend is, right, all of these decisions we're seeing being made off of bad data. And so the solution to that would be collect your own data, and I really encourage everyone to do that. You'll see on the top here that we are leveraging our partnerships and collecting data through partnering with Oakland Unified School Districts. So we were able to essentially use student Chromebooks in a method pioneered by Fresno Unified School District. And essentially, we were able to counteract a lot of the misinformation the state has provided, showing essentially the performance levels that our students are actually getting by utilizing their Chromebooks. So we now have over 500,000 speed tests, and we're able to analyze that data by zip code, which you can see in the top right corner there. We also, this doesn't have to just be quantitative data. This can also be qualitative. So we worked with Oakland Housing Authority, another huge partner of ours, to actually get some qualitative data from folks throughout Oakland. And you see all those blue dots are the different locations that they are situated. And we actually asked them, right, do you have different service providers that you could choose from? Are you happy with your broadband? How many outages do you get, right? And that qualitative data is also very informative, especially when partnered with the quantitative. So definitely recommend that you use this data because you can both highlight the need in your community and also counter some of these common misconceptions that we've been hearing. For example, one of our biggest incumbent providers has said multiple times at public forums that if folks in these low-income communities don't have internet, it's because they don't want it, right? That is a common misconception. That is not true. We've never heard that in any of our data collection, and it's really important we counter those common misconceptions. And that is our last slide. Thank you all so much for having us. Our emails are there if you have any questions, but we're happy to answer them now too.
Thank you so much, Oakland Undivided team. It's insanely impressive to see all of the data collection you all are doing, the meeting community members where they're at, and all of the work that you all have done. So thank you so much for sharing that. And the tips, I think, are incredible for all the attendees here and for all other community organizations looking to do some of that same work that you're doing. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yeah, and +1, thank you so much to the Oakland Undivided team. I feel like that's such a good cue up for the stuff the ACC folks are about to talk about, because I know so many communities struggle with not having the people on hand to help with the speed testing, the ACP signups, all of those things. And ACC, I know, has been tremendously helpful in so many communities. So Eric, we're going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the ACC program, and then we will have time at the end for questions for the Oakland Undivided team and ACC. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat now, but we'll come back to them once everyone gets a chance to share. So take it away, Eric.
Thank you, Corian. I think you were on the right track. I could have let you just continue and pitch us for the entire presentation. We don't even have to present here. So great to be here with y'all. I'm going to go super fast just because I do want to leave time for those questions for both of our teams. I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Eric. I'm our Director of Strategic Initiatives here at Lead for America. Lead for America is our parent organization. The program we operate is called the American Connection Corps, or ACC. I'm excited to be joined by a lot of members who are of ACC affiliation today. We have Scott, our Director of National Services, on the call. We have Sierra and Tati, who are our program officers. And then we're going to have 3 members on the call who are going to introduce themselves in a little bit as well. And so I will jump right in. Let me see if I can share. I'm borrowing my mom's computer today. So, it's going to give me a problem. Scott, I'm actually just going to give you, if it's okay with you, Scott, I'm just going to send you this link and have you present it, if that's okay, because I'm on a computer that is not usually mine.
Works for me. Set it my way.
All right, let's put that over here. All right, I just put that in the chat.
Got it.
So while Scott's pulling that up, I can just introduce our program. So we're the American Connection Corps. We're a national service program operating around the country. Each of our core members serves a 1-year paid service placement with a nonprofit or a government agency in their home community. And we have a real specific focus on tackling the digital divide. So our members serve across a variety of different organizations. But their work is going to have something to do with tackling the digital divide, either on the access or the adoption side, no matter which type of organization that they're serving with. So, Scott, you can flip to the next slide, which is our kind of mosaic. The way I like to start with this side, I just think it helps visualize the kind of amazing diversity of our cohort in one picture. You can omit the fact that my picture is embedded in there. That makes it worse. But, we have an incredible diversity of members serving around the country. They're all unified by their commitment to service, their commitment to the community that they are from. And it's just a really, really incredible experience to be able to convene this group of individuals to form a cohort of rising, civic leaders in every community across the country. So let's go to the next slide. So I mentioned our 3 program areas. So no matter what type of organization you may be working for, if you're on the call today, we really think there's an opportunity to add capacity through a program like ours. So our 3 program areas are community and economic development. That could be organizations like state broadband offices, city governments, regional planning commissions, economic development districts, that sort of thing. We have health and social capital. That is education organizations, school districts, public health entities, housing organizations, that sort of stuff. And then agriculture and natural resources, that could be organizations that work in climate or in energy. And so no matter which type of organization you are, we think there's a digital divide component to your work, and we think that there is likely capacity that you could use to help tackle the challenges in any of those areas. So those are our 3 program areas. Flip to the next slide, Scott. Thank you. The really unique thing I think about our program compared to other national service programs is how nationally scaled, but really locally focused we are. So all of our members are serving communities that they are either from or that they otherwise have a very strong connection to. We're not typically in the business of taking folks from New York City, which is where I grew up, and sending them to Nebraska or to the Mississippi Delta or to Arizona or wherever it may be. We're really going to find individuals to serve right out of the communities that they are going to be serving. And that is just a philosophical tenet that is really important to help build buy-in and get work done more effectively with our local partners on the ground. So I think that's the most distinct thing about our program. We have a couple of slides on just the impact that our members have made in the past couple of years. So we're in our 3rd cohort right now. These slides summarize the impact of our first 2 cohorts, which are 2021-22 and 22-23. You can see the types of digital divide related accomplishments that they had. They channeled a tremendous number of financial resources to their communities through helping their host sites apply for federal and state grants. They did speed mapping tests. They conducted town halls and public workshops. They enrolled households in the Affordable Connectivity Program. They helped connect new infrastructure to households. They did digital skill building workshops. You name it. There was so much work going on across those first 2 cohorts. And that doesn't even, these stats don't even summarize our current cohort, who's obviously making this impact right now. And that's our largest cohort ever. So that's 104. It's pretty much double what any of our prior 2 cohorts were. So you could be working for a variety of organizations. Those stats are very, very sort of digital access focused, but there is going to be a lot of great community facing work for members to work on. And I think above all that, this slide really gets at whatever numbers you want to put on a page, right? There is something that is just really bigger than any number that you can achieve in a year. And that is just having a national network of leaders who are diverse in every sense of the term and who are building empathy with their citizens in their community, and who are, bridging divides across rural, urban, across every geographic area and state in the country, to have a cohort of leaders who are going to take their skills and experiences to the highest levels of leadership in our country for years to come. So there's something bigger than just a 1-year, paid service term. About what it means to root yourself to a place and to begin a career of service in that area. So with that, I think we usually have a couple of member profiles here, but what we decided today would be better than showing slides of different members is to actually have some of our members introduce themselves and talk about the work that they are doing. So we have Autumn, Sasha, and Dimitri on the call. We're going to start with Autumn, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what she's doing, where she's serving, and kind of what her service here has meant for her. So Autumn, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Autumn, and I'm an ACC AmeriCorps member serving at the East Central Indiana Regional Planning District, which is an economic development nonprofit based in Muncie, Indiana. My service covers 4 counties. They're about like rural, urban mixed in East Central Indiana. And my host organization works mostly in planning. For instance, I facilitated deals that have led to 2 counties committing to $20 million fiber build-out projects through next level connections and BEAD grants. Now, 2 counties in my region will have the best broadband technology installed to cover their counties within 4 years. And I also do a lot of outreach, as any ACC member does, and educational workshops. So my outreach informs residents about state and federal broadband programs that they could be eligible for, such as maybe BEAD, such as, well, no longer ACP, but programs like that. And then most of my workshops that I host center around BEAD and how to navigate the challenge process and digital literacy using North Star's program in public computer labs. And I'm currently super involved with BEAD. And I try to motivate other organizations to become challengers or just support the cause of broadband accessibility. And my ACC experience has connected me with so many amazing people that truly want to see their community prosper. I work with people who are dedicated to public service and advancing their communities, and I've seen our efforts lead to imperative change. My ACC experience has taught me that digital equity is more about computers and broadband, and it's about people and their well-being. And I'm so grateful to serve with my fellow ACC members. Thank you to everyone on this call. And thank you so much. All right.
Thank you, Autumn. So special. Sasha, we'll kick it over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here. I am Sasha Rojas Zaragoza. I am a member with ACC, and I'm serving with the University of Idaho's Digital Economy Program as a digital literacy coordinator here in Boise, Idaho. So I want to share with you a little bit about the work that I'm doing. I provide digital education and one-on-one coaching classes, things like that, to an organization here called the International Rescue Committee. And it is one of Idaho's 2 resettlement agencies for refugees, asylees, and other people coming from countries that have an immigration status. And so being an American Connection Corps member allows the capacity for me to provide digital skills to them. A lot of these people speak 3, 4, some of them 7 languages. None of them are English. And so I give classes on Google Maps, sometimes even as basic as using their phone and Google Translate. And that helps them navigate their new life here in our community. And I'm just really appreciative of the support, the collaborative environment, and all of the opportunities that being an ACC member provides for me. And I'll piggyback on what Oakland Undivided said, that it truly provides capacity for me to meet people where they're at and then empower from there. So thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. Appreciate it. Dimitri, over to you.
All right, can you guys hear me well? Excellent. My name is Dimitri Simonton. I am an ACC AmeriCorps member serving with the Tucson Industrial Development Authority and Groundswell Capital. We are focusing on creating Arizona's first green bank, capitalizing $750 million out of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, as well as the Solar for All project, which is a $250 million project as well. What I've been doing in my work is focusing on building the structures and the systems that's going to be deployed throughout the state of Arizona, as well as convening rural and metropolitan leadership together so we can make sure that this actually works for all of our communities, right? What's been amazing about this is actually having a seat at the table from the beginning as a rural community and being a part of that planning process rather than things being decided and we have to find the scraps. So Lead for America and ACC has enabled our state to actually change the dynamic and how these plans are being deployed. My experience has been amazing, piggybacking off of some of what my fellow members have said, meeting people where they're at, right? A lot of times you still have to do that with people in C-class leadership positions, and sometimes you don't think that that's what you need to do, but you still have to meet those people where they're at because there's a lot of change going on in our economy, and not everybody is aware of what's going on, what that looks like, or how it's going to look in their new organization. So being able to be in a position to help convene and lead and develop the systems for the next 10 years of investment in our state has been absolutely amazing. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. Yeah, I always just want to drop the mic when you guys done it. I mean, it's just amazing to hear your stories. It reminds me why I work for this organization. So thank you for sharing your stories. Let's pick up the deck just to wrap up for a couple more minutes to talk about kind of where we're at in our process and what the folks on this call could be interested in. So We are now recruiting for host sites for our next program year. Our program year is going to start in September. The first week of orientation is going to be September 9th. We are trying to double the size of the cohort again and go for over 200 members in this cycle. We're trying to get into all 50 states this year. So if you are on the call and you are from a nonprofit, if you're from a government agency, if you know individuals from those types of organizations who might be interested in bringing a core member onto their team to help advance their digital divide related work, we would absolutely love to hear from you. I'm going to put our host site application in the chat right here. You can find it right there. We're trying to have all host sites apply ideally in the next couple of weeks. Our priority deadline is April 1st right now. I know that's pretty soon. We will have other deadlines after that, but the process is generally that we get host sites to apply. We start sourcing for core members, right? It does take us a little bit of time because we are really trying to recruit out of the communities that we are serving. And we spend the late spring and early summer recruiting for those core members, matching them with interviews with host sites and making sure we get the right person in place by September. In terms of what host sites need to provide, like I said, they need to be a government or a nonprofit agency. Scott, I think if we flip maybe one slide prior to this, there it is. They need to have, actually go one forward. There we go. So they need to be a government or nonprofit. They need to have a clear idea of what this member is going to do. So we think that's going to enable a better core member experience. When you have a clear position description, you have a clear supervisor. We do have a financial contribution that is, significant for some communities. We ask for about $35,000 per core member. Most of that goes to the core members for their stipend. We pay a stipend that's about 50 or more percent higher than most other AmeriCorps programs. Sometimes we do have host organizations that raise money from a community foundation or a philanthropic partner to meet that obligation, but we can certainly discuss that. I think for now, we're really just trying to get a sense of who is interested and who has a clear need for a core member on their team. And then there are some smaller things. You need to be able to provide an office space. It cannot be a purely remote position. There was an exception for that in the past with COVID, but it doesn't exist anymore. And you need to be able to kind of provide a good, workspace and general, working environment for the member. And then we do ask for your help as a host site in recruiting locally and just getting the word out. And so, again, if you're an organization that might be interested in bringing a core member aboard or having a conversation about our program and seeing how we can support your community, we would absolutely love to talk to you. We will put our emails into the chat, and you're welcome to email us anytime. We're also happy to connect you with our members if you'd like to speak with them and hear more about their experience. And I think we can probably wrap up there and leave some time for questions. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Eric and Autumn and Sasha and Dimitri, for sharing all of that information and the work that you're doing. Again, it's just a reminder that community-based organizations are really the people that move the needle and help us close the digital divide in a very real way. We do have a couple of minutes left in the webinar today. If you have questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Use your raising hand feature. If you feel the time is right, please unmute yourself and go ahead and share. I don't see any right now, so I'm happy to kind of get us started. I do have a question for Oakland Undivided, knowing that you all are, the kings and queens of collecting data in your community and on that level. With one of the difficulties of the ACP wind down is defining low cost options for communities. Do you guys have an idea or have some feedback from your community members of what they consider affordable broadband service?
Yeah, one of the questions that we asked some of the residents from Oakland Housing, from the Oakland Housing Authority was what is an affordable plan for you? And most folks shared that anything between $0 to $30 was affordable. Another piece of data that I think is really important to highlight that we were very surprised to hear. We also asked folks how satisfied they were with their internet service plan. And we really thought that most folks were going to be very dissatisfied with the cheapest version. But what we found was, excuse me, was that most folks who were paying the most were actually more dissatisfied with the service they were providing. because they couldn't justify what they were paying for the quality of service that they were receiving. So just to answer your question from the beginning, most folks have identified $0 to $30. Stacy.
Thank you. That's very helpful, especially considering what you guys shared about the state digital equity plan and what they considered the barriers to connection, and what you all are hearing on the floor of cost being that number one barrier. So thank you so much for that information. Gordon, thank you for raising your hand. Please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask any of the questions you would like.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
great. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. It's very helpful. I dropped contact information in the chat. I work at the American Society of Civil Engineers, and I'm writing a broadband chapter. You may be familiar with our report card. We grade categories of infrastructure in the letter grade system. And so I'm curious for the Oakland folks, when you have had conversations with CPUC or other government authorities that are executing BEAD money or other types of federal or state funding, do you receive pushback when you present your data that say that, you know, your maps or your official reports claim levels of service that don't seem to be real on the ground? Like, how receptive have they been?
Sure, I can take that one. I'll start with a not very receptive. Yes, we've definitely got pushback about our data, which I think surprised me maybe a little bit, just given the amount of data that we've been able to collect. You know, these student Chromebooks, they run speed tests every single time a student opens their laptop at home. We can parse out this data by provider. We can parse it out by megabits per second. We can parse this out by if they're connected to a school network, home network, wireless, wireline. So definitely, you know, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of tests here. So you would think it would be difficult to fight back against data and just, you know, the amount that we have. But obviously, the providers and their lobbyists still do it. I'd say from a CPUC perspective, and, you know, as we're thinking about like getting into BEAD grants, which I know came up in the other presentation as well, our problem is that the way in which like the challenge process, for example, for our state and also the NTIA guidance for the entire country has been that we need to collect the level at which folks are subscribed. And I know that that's obviously in incredibly high burden that's placed on communities to collect that information. And it's very difficult to do that at scale to identify what it is that they're subscribed to. That's been the same argument used by our incumbents, for example, that have said, you know, well, we're not sure. Yes, they're getting under 100 megs, but their plan, their low cost plan, which, you know, you need to apply to, and there are certain requirements for even being eligible for that plan, is 50 megs. So they're essentially saying, well, a lot of these folks could be on our low cost plan. Obviously, they're not really forthcoming with the percentage of folks in Oakland that are on that plan or how widely used that is. But I know that that's definitely been kind of an ISP rebuttal to a lot of the data that we're seeing. And I think, you know, that the state doesn't want to have to get in between community and providers, and really wants to stick to the challenge process guidance that's been provided to them at a federal level. So definitely, you know, I would say our legislators have been a lot more receptive to this data than any state agencies we've interacted with.
Thanks. And I just have one more question, and I appreciate you humoring me. Now that ACP is winding down, or, you know, being defunded, depending upon your position, what are you guys telling people to transition to? Is without that funding, is there something you can transition them to, or is it just a lot of people losing service?
Yeah, Carolina, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, thank you. So as the ACP is winding down, we actually reached out to the popular providers in our area to figure out like what are you going to offer ACP recipients now that this is gone. And so we found that, for example, one provider said that they are having like an opt-in option, and it's a low-cost program, and it's going to be like a grandfathered program, so that individuals who are in the ACP, they're just going to be able to opt into this $30 a month low-cost program. And so that's one example. But we want to meet the community where they're at again. So for some people, like if they're able to, if the low cost option is better for them, like we want to make sure that they know that they have different options. Or if they're able to pay more, then we want to talk about like megabytes with them, and helping understand speeds and kind of like what they're paying for as well. And so just understanding that each community and each individual is going to have like a different budget as far as like their internet bill and what they can afford, but just letting them know that call your provider, figure out like how is this going to affect your bill, and then make an educated decision on like what works best for your family, and also emphasizing the protections that they have where they can't be charged an early termination fee and other aspects like that. We're just making sure that that information is out there so that the community can really make an educated decision for what works best for them.
I'm going to jump in with a quick question for Eric as well. I'm just curious about your program. That a lot of your communities have different needs and think around that. So how do you gauge the skill sets of the AmeriCorps or the members as they're applying for the different jobs? And is there an interview process with that, or how do they kind of set what the skill sets are needed for their particular programs?
Yeah, great question. So, I think that's why our process sort of starts when it does, right? We're recruiting those host sites, for the past couple of months and for the next month or so as well. And the first thing we do when a host site applies is they get on a call with Scott and his team, and they hear about what do they have in mind for this person, and what, if any, like specific skills are they looking for. And then we pass that over to our core member recruitment team. They go out there and try to find somebody with that particular skill set. We try to caution organizations that these are typically, relatively young folks who are not, gurus in any particular area. But if they have something that's reasonable and specific, they need somebody who is bilingual or something like that, right? That's always very, very helpful to know. And we try to accommodate their needs as best we can. And that's also just why historically, I think the thing that takes the longest is finding that right person. But we definitely walk host sites through it, and it's a really important part of the experience is meeting their unique needs.
Yeah, that's terrific. I have previously worked with AmeriCorps Vistas, as did having them help run Digital Navigator programs, and so that's wonderful. Great work you're doing. I also just love the fact that you're investing in the communities, those monies. That's something we don't talk enough about with the BEAD funding that's coming out for workforce development and digital equity funds. No, it's actually not just for digital equity. It's actually creating equity, having an economic impact in these communities, as well as if we're spending the money in there for workforce development and such. So yeah, I think that's just tremendous. Great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. If I have the blessing from Oakland Undivided, and if I am able to get the slides from Eric, I'm happy to include that in our email to registrants, just so you guys have those resources available. I also took down the links that were added in the chat today from the Oakland Undivided team and ACC to bring those out to our registrants. And we're going to be uploading this video onto our YouTube page and relay broadcasting it on social media so that people have access to these great tips and resources that you all provided today. So thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate spending the afternoon with us. I'm going to put in the chat our link to Bipartisan Tech in case you're able to join us. We would love to see you next month. Special thank you to the Oakland Undivided team and for American Connection Corps for sharing with us, spending your Thursday with us. And we appreciate all the resources and the work you're doing in your communities. It really has really helped to close the digital divide as much as we can, and the work still continues. So thank you all, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Stacy, again for inviting us. Thank you, Andy.
It's good to see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and the ACC team.
Thanks for having us. Cynthia, I just responded to your question, but plenty of PD for sure, and always happy to talk. I did grad school in the Bay Area, so love the work you're doing.
Thank you, Eric.
Talk to y'all later.